Welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I'm your host, Karen E. Osborne, and if you have been a regular viewer, thank you. Thank you so much for watching all of these episodes. It's over a year of them, and for returning. We're so appreciative of that. And I have a lovely guest to introduce you to today. You know, we do a lot of fiction, right? On this show, a lot of fiction, but we're always happy when nonfiction writers come along. And I think you're going to love meeting Noelle Schwantes. So let me just tell you a little bit about her, and then you'll meet her. But you can see her lovely face. So she is a therapist, an entrepreneur, and as I mentioned, a nonfiction author. In her new book, Change Your Story, and the S is a $, she dives into her own torrid 15-year relationship with money. I really want to talk about this because I've had a torrid relationship with money, as well
Many
as
of us relate to that.
right? As well as her clients who were struggling in the same way. She's now financially secure and shares her insights. Welcome, Noelle.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. I wish I'd met you years ago.
Well, then years ago, I was still a disaster too. I couldn't have.
Oh, well, then. Fortunately, I married a man who helped straighten me up. So you describe your past relationship. I mean, I love that word, torrid. So could you just tell us a little bit about it and what was torrid about it?
All right. Well, I think that some of it kind of was rooted in just not a lot of good information about money. My dad's father passed away when he was 2. So he was raised by a single mama who just was trying to keep food on the table, And so there wasn't a lot of training around money. And then that kind of, my dad is fond of saying, I made every financial mistake you could ever make. And I think, and why would he have done it any differently? There was no training around that, Yeah. And that trend continues. And I think I was just raised with a lot of, we saw debt as a way of life. There was no support around it, I guess, because there's usually a lot of shame around money. And so people don't talk about it. They don't get help when they have struggles or when they're hitting a wall. So that was kind of the root system, I guess, so to speak, of money. And then as an adult, I got into a difficult marriage, ended up leaving that marriage and being on my own for the first time because I got married 1 year out of high school. And so that really was when things kind of blew up for me. And the way I had been doing money was not working. I was barely getting by and just waking up in the middle of the night with fear. I describe it as an anaconda in my belly.
Because you're just so worried all the time. How are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to survive?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So how did you get from there to to change your story? What was that path?
Well, and I'm not sure where your listeners come from, but I asked God to teach me 100% financial surrender because I just was tired of being afraid all the time. And so some funny things happened after that, but that was really the root of it. Was like, I'd see people around me, you hear stories, and you people like Oprah, and you hear people who have come from a lot less than I had, who are now really thriving and living fully and making an impact on the world. And so I knew it was possible. And it really started there. Like, I don't want to live like this. There's gotta be some healing. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to figure out a way to get it onto the path. And so how did you get it straightened out? What did you do?
I think I'm a therapist.
In addition to prayer. What did you do?
Yeah, yeah. What are some of the steps? I think what is a little different around the way that I focus on finances than other people are, as I am trained as a therapist, and my focus as a therapist was working with people with trauma. So I worked with a lot of, and I'm a sexual abuse survivor myself. And so I would see my clients start to really get traction and heal. And this was true for me. I did a lot of healing around the emotional and some of those traumatic things in my life. And then money worries would come in and kind of kick me back into old behaviors. And at this point in my life, I'm a therapist and I'm seeing this happen with my clients too. And I thought, how many millions of books are there on money management tools? But nobody was really talking about the emotional undercurrents around money. So that was when I started. It's funny because I actually started to do money work similar to the work I had done around my own trauma. And so started to do a lot of like looking at what really are my beliefs around money, and are they true? Could those assumptions be challenged? Could they be shifted? And so really it started, and I use the picture of a tree. Like if your money situation is a tree, what is the fruit on your tree? Financially, do you have fear, debt, chronic spending? What fruit is on your tree? Or do you have savings and a lot of joy and a lot of purpose? Because I really think financial prosperity is more around being able to fulfill your purpose in the world, not driving, a Ferrari, so to speak. And although that is for some, like one of my mentors, he has a Ferrari and he really likes it. But so yeah, so it really, and so a lot of what those money management books say, like put techniques in place, like a financial planner told me once, because I had a chronic spending problem. Put your credit card in a Ziploc bag of water and freeze it so that before you spend, you have to think about it. That did not stop me, And so instead of using these different financial techniques, really what I talk with clients is like, let's get to the root system that's causing the bad fruit. Because you can chop off bad fruit off a tree, but it's going to grow back the same unless you heal the root system. Yeah.
That is so powerful. I too am a sexual survivor, thriver.
Yeah, I love that. I like that way better.
I've given up being a survivor. And it's interesting because money was never discussed at home, ever. So there was a lot of shame around money, but also there was a lot of doling out money as a sign of love. So boy, can you get confused, being a survivor and then having money be all this mixed up. So I really understand your approach and love your approach. I think that makes so much sense.
Thank you.
Let's figure out what the underlying issues are so we can have a healthier aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the hardest part of actually writing the book? You've been working around and figuring things out, but what was difficult about actually sitting down and writing?
It was actually, I woke up one day with the entire outline in my head. So yeah, I'm actually working on a second book now, and this one is not happening that way, but I woke up like literally. So I just wrote it down real fast. And the hardest part about writing the book was the chapter on shame. Yeah. I really wrestled with a lot of the definitions out there, didn't really feel like they fit for me. It's a hard thing we all feel it, but sometimes it's a really like a jellyfish, it's very hard to nail down, I guess, sometimes. So that chapter I wrestled with. Yeah.
People don't talk much about shame, and certainly not around money, but shame is so much a part of trauma and plays out in our lives. So that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I loved about in your book is the importance of listening.
Mhm.
Those of you that know me know that I talk about that a lot. And
Oh, yay.
yeah, oh, big, we're such poor listeners, but I wanted to hear how you think about listening.
Okay. I think for me, um, really this lesson started to kind of coalesce for me when I was working on the book. I was writing it at a local coffee shop, and it's a coffee shop where a lot of business people will come in and do their meetings or whatever. So I met a lot of financial planners or people who are in the financial services industries, and got to be very good friends with some of them, and they would all have their perspective on what you should do with your money. And usually they disagreed with each other, even though they were very heartfelt, And I thought, how's a person supposed to navigate this with your money? And so that is one of the chapters in the book around listening, excuse me, listening for spiritual direction. And if that's not your cup of tea, listening for that space inside of you when you have peace about something, like when you just know that this is the right step for you. Because money is very fluid, it's very liquid, it's yours. You get to train it where to go, you get to decide how to use it. And if you are not listening to that internal voice, whether you call that intuition or spiritual guidance, depending on what framework you walk in, that is really vital, and it's never taught. I never heard anybody talk about that.
No, it's interesting. My husband is helping our young grandsons. The oldest now is 15, but he got his lessons on money with my husband at 11, and now the 11-year-old is they're learning all about money, and they're learning about the stock market and savings and giving, being generous and giving. But I don't know that I don't know that he's tapping into how do you feel about money. And so I'm gonna share this interview with him and your book with him. So as he develops, because we still have another one coming up. So he keeps getting better and better at.
That's right. The third one's going to be ready to go.
Yes, it's going to be like the winner. Well, we were just never exposed or taught or anything. It was like a whisper. Didn't talk about money.
Yeah.
Yes. So can you share? Just you shared already. You've been wonderful sharing. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience about what they might get out of this book, or what they should be looking for before they purchase the book?
Okay.
That this is the right book for you.
Yeah. I really, because most of my clients are female entrepreneurs, so I work with a lot of women who have tried to start a business, or they're trying to scale their business and having a hard time because of money blocks. So that's who it's written to. In fact, some of the males that have read the book were like, you kept talking about the girls. So I might have to change that language in the next book. But what I would say is really the book is really helpful around is, I do think that if they were like me, I felt like I tried everything. I read Dave Ramsey, I tried all the different budgets, and I still couldn't manage my money or even seem to be able to make good choices with it. And investing, like, that was just beyond me. I couldn't even fathom that. And I think that I wrote this book for people who maybe have recognized the traditional tactics are not working for me with money. And this goes deeper to like what may be underlying those issues.
Why that's not going. So what's the new book about?
I'm so excited about it. It's actually called Men, Money, and Food. And it's funny, if I go to business conferences and men ask me for the title of the book, some of them look a little uncomfortable, and that's the end of the conversation. But most women are like, oh, put me on the wait list for that. It's similar themes to the Change Your Story, but I think, I really believe that a lot of times our wounded places are really about where we're supposed to heal and give back into the world. And those were the 3 areas of my life that I struggled with so huge. And they ended up being the things that I would see happening, like a lot of my female clients. It was one of those 3 things that was tripping them up. So it's healing
Cool.
and purpose. Yeah. I'm really excited about
Yeah.
it.
How close are you to publication?
Not close at all. I've got about 60 pages. Yeah, so far.
Yeah. Yes, I understand. I have a work in progress too, and it
Do
just
you?
takes time.
Yeah.
It just takes time. So this is also a What Are You Reading podcast. So do you have
Yes.
any books that you could recommend to our audience?
Well, I am reading the ones that I'm reading right now. I just finished one over the weekend called Never by Ken Follett, and that's
It was
fiction.
amazing. That book is amazing and scary.
Yes.
Right? It feels like it's happening to us right now.
Yeah.
Never by Ken
And it's
Follett.
so realistic. You can think
Yeah.
about, so that one was about the possibility of nuclear war. Yeah. And I'm a sucker for anything spy related, and Ken Follett writes a lot about spies.
Yes.
So that was my fun read. And then I'm also reading, what's the name of it? It's by Gary Keller. The One Thing, I think, is the name of it. I never remember titles. Are you like that?
Sometimes, yes.
When you read a lot, you forget.
They blend.
Yes. The one, I got it right. The One Thing by Gary Keller. So my coach, my business coach, recommended I read that because, as an author or entrepreneur, there's so many different things you can focus on, and it's sometimes hard to get traction. And so the book was really about making a case for figuring out what is the one thing that if you do that, everything else kind of falls into place.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like
been
a
really
good.
good.
Yeah, that sounds like that I need to add that to my reading list.
Right.
So if our audience wanted to find you, they wanted to find you professionally, they wanted to find you as an author, where could they find you?
They would go to changeyourfinancialstory.com. And that's my website. So they can email me through that website. There's also a lot of free resources. There's a free ebook on the website. So as well as like a quiz, are you ready to change your story? A free quiz. So there's some fun things that they can kind of explore to see if working with me might be a good fit.
Doesn't that sound cool, everybody? So changeyourstory.com. So I want to thank you so much, Noelle, for being on. This has been such a pleasure. And I want to thank all of you for being on. We're so glad that you came. I hope whatever platform you're watching this on, YouTube or Karen E. Osborne Facebook, or Karen E. Osborne Author on Facebook, or on my website, wherever you're watching it, I hope that you will stay in touch, that you'll click follow and like or subscribe.
There you go.
And that we will see you again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.